The following presentation is brought to you by The Realm Network.
Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to comedian J. Anthony Brown, a veteran stand-up who does everything from co-star on the Tom Joyner Morning Show to repping his own line of hot sauce, snacks, and merchandise. Stick around. Anybody else notice it's hotter than a mofo in here? So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, brought to you today by Amazon.com. When you visit MrMedia.com and click on any of the links to purchase books, music, movies, gift certificates, or anything else through our Amazon link, you support this free video podcast. Whenever you need something else from Amazon, please consider returning to MrMedia.com to order it. It doesn't cost you any extra, and we sure appreciate the support. And don't forget, MrMedia.com has more than 1,200 celebrity audio and video interviews archived on the site. That's hundreds upon hundreds of hours free entertainment. Subscribe for free on MrMedia.com, and you'll instantly get an email every time a new interview is posted. You can also watch and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Vimeo, Dailymotion, the Realm Network, and Frequency.com. And if you prefer to just listen, Mr. Media is also available for free on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Blueberry, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, Podfeed.net, and Player FM. You can subscribe to any of those services and never miss another episode. Finally, you can interact with Mr. Media Interviews on all kinds of social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and more. Friend or follow us, we'll friend or follow you back. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of J. Anthony Brown fans who just know the poor bastard made a wrong turn in his career to have landed here, in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida.
I was just there, man. Just there a few minutes ago.
You're kidding?
No, about a couple of hours ago. I was in St. Petersburg, right?
You were here a couple hours ago?
Yes, I was.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. What were you doing in St. Pete?
Well, the radio show was on in St. Petersburg, so we went to one of the affiliates there.
J. Anthony Brown has a lot of profound life advice to share.
Wow.
Sure, some of you know him as a comedian, a guy producing laughs as part of the Tom Joyner Morning Show. But the more I get to know him, I think we should bite our tongues and take notes from the big man, often in the purple suit. Some gems I got from the Book of Jay. Sometimes you just have to cuss a motherfucker out. How about this? I could lose weight too if I saw Barry White naked. Don't beg for oral sex. That's not funny. That's probably just true. Shit happens to white people too. Every week some white person falls in a goddamn hole. Oh, one more. Try my hot sauce. Okay, so that last one, that was just a free plug for J. Anthony Brown's Hotter Than a Mofo hot sauce and snacks.
Thank you so much.
And that's because, folks, he's not just doing my show because I'm a good conversationalist. All right, so Jay also sings, and I wondered if you've heard I'm a Black Man and I Like Country Music Too, or maybe CeeLo's Hands, or Started Liking Women, and Now I'm Gay. All right, one more line of wisdom from the J-Man before we bring him to start talking. If cussing offends you, you better get the fuck out of here. And if you're under 18, you must leave now. We'll wait. All right, that's enough. J. Anthony Brown, welcome to Mr. Media.
Yeah, they should be gone.
I hope they're gone. Hey, Jay, when did you realize that you were funny? I mean, was there a moment when you made people laugh and you went, this could be a career?
I never thought I could do it as a career. I always enjoyed being around comedy or being around relatives in the family. that were funny, and I just gravitated toward funny people, even in school. If there was somebody that made other people laugh, I wanted to be around them, wanted to be close to them. I wasn't a jock follower. I wasn't the nerdy guy follower. But people in school that really stood out for me were the people who had the ability to make people laugh. Even teachers.
Even teachers. I'm surprised. We don't usually think of many teachers as being funny.
Man, one of my teachers that stands out is Mr. K. Patterson. He was my English teacher in the 9th grade. This guy was funny, very articulate, dressed up, and, somewhere in my mind I said that's how I wanted to be. That's how I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to have words that could make people show an emotion or make people laugh. I mean, I didn't really sit down and think about it like that, but as I sit down and think about it now, those were the people I wanted to be around.
Was there anybody in the family funny? I mean, were your parents funny?
My mother was very funny. My father was funny. My father had this ability to. My father had this ability, in which I wish I had, to talk to anybody, no matter how much money they made, no matter what status they were in. He had this ability to find a common denominator in that person, and he could carry on a conversation. My father had been in the service. My father fished. My father smoked. So with those three characteristics, and in everybody, you could find somebody who knew somebody who went in the service, knew somebody who smoked, or knew somebody who fished. So he just had this ability. My mother was a laugher. My mother just loved to laugh. And remember, when I was small, my mother would call me Name Johnson. Not a popular imitation right now, but when I was coming up, my mother loved to see me do Lyndon Baines Johnson, the President of the United States. All I had to do was say, "I've come to you tonight with a heavy heart." She'd crack up.
That's got to make a big difference in a young person's life when there's laughter in the family, when your father can talk, when your mother likes to laugh. I mean, that's a big difference than a lot of kids grow up with.
It wasn't always laughter. There was a lot of pain in that house, but the times I remember us laughing, it just kind of stood out. I had a cousin Melvin. He lived in Charlotte, North Carolina, and he would come and visit us, him and his wife. And he was always bragging about how much he made and how much he had. But he stayed with us. He never got a hotel cheap ass. He never got a hotel. But he was funny. I just loved to be around him. I loved to watch him, quote unquote, work the crowd, work the family.
Where did you grow up, by the way?
I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. Actually, I grew up in two areas. My father was in the service for a while, and while my father was in the service, we traveled, and then we settled in Columbia, South Carolina. And I was always listening to comedy and watching Ed Sullivan and Johnny Carson and stuff like that. And we didn't have a television, but they had a show that came on the radio. It was called The Comedy Hour. It was a 15-minute show called The Comedy Hour. So I would listen to that. I would listen to that show, and they had comedians like Moms Mabley and Red Fox and Picnic Markham and, Jonathan Winters. And I was just fascinated by the ability that people had this ability to make people laugh.
Should we have waited a beat for people to get that it was the Comedy Hour and it was 15 minutes?
I think they get it. I mean, it seemed like an hour to me when I was listening to it. So, hey, I didn't figure it out till I grew up. So,
well, let's hope if they're tuning in for an interview with you that they got a sense of humor. They figured it out. Okay, so the things you remember about childhood, you set aside the pain, you remember the good stuff. That's the funny stuff. When did it start dawning on you that you could make a career out of this? Did you have to do some other things first, or did you?
I was a tailor. I did tailoring for a long while. I was a tailor. I was going to go to designing school to become a designer, and I moved to Atlanta after living in Columbia, South Carolina, going to school down there. and to go to this designing school. Well, I mean, I got there and they wouldn't let me start school because my grant was short. And I was just determined not to go back. But, lucky for me, since I knew how to be a tailor, could do tailoring, I managed to get a job in different tailor shops. And I heard that they were having amateur nights in different parts of Atlanta, and I would go out. And, after leaving Columbia from bombing, I would do so bad. I just said, well, maybe I'll take a different approach to it. One of the approach that I took was the fact that I didn't have the ability to continue to talk. And it may sound, very small now, but if you listen to some younger kids talk, they say, and you know what I mean? And when I taped myself, I noticed that I was talking like that. And what I had to do was find a way not to talk with breaks in it. And I would just get a tape. I bought a tape player. Every day I would just sit down and literally just talk. And from talking, if I thought of anything, from talking to myself that was funny, I would write it down. And that's, for me, that's how it worked for me.
So that's how you started writing material, and that's how you improved your speech pattern.
Mm-hmm.
And just out of curiosity. No, go ahead, please.
No, you go ahead.
All right. So you grew up in the South. You don't have a lot. I don't hear a deep Southern accent on you right now.
Yes, because my parents traveled a lot. The first maybe 9 years of my life, my father traveled. My mother and father traveled to Germany. I speak what is called dialect German. It's not really German, but I would watch Sid Caesar, and he would do this dialect. I don't know, and I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. And basically he would go, jeden Aufstehen Abend ist dann jeden Hochsinn, jeden haben Sie, jeden Abend ist dann haben Sie, jeden Abend sind dann ordentlich, wir Abend sind dann werden. Well, that's nothing but dialect. It sounds like German.
Right. I just listened to... Go ahead. I was going to say, I just listened to Carl Reiner's biography as an audiobook, and he talked about when he and Sid Caesar would do that, and that it was just, there were no words. It was just what you're saying. It was all dialect. Show of shows 100 years ago. They was just,
no words. That's what I got. I would watch them on Johnny Carson. There was another comedian by the name of Shecky Green, and he would come on and he would do dialects, and he would talk as if he was Hispanic. And sometimes people can do that, some can't do it, but it's just something I could do. And from the South, and I could do these. I could do, then a second, God damn it, I could do that, and it was just a blessing that I had the ear to pick it up. That's all. But it came from, mimicking people in school. They were like, do Professor such, do the principal. So if you could do this, do those people would just gravitate into famous people.
Do you remember the first gig that actually made a difference in your career, that kind of set the pace for you?
Oh yeah, it was an amateur night at a place called the 8 Ball, and the 8 Ball changed into a place called Mr. V's Figure 8. And if anybody who's in their 50s and lived in Atlanta between, I'd say 79 and maybe 85, they probably went to Mr. V's Figure 8. But the New Year's night, they had an amateur, they were letting people go on stage, and it was New Year's night. I go on stage to perform, and I did okay. And the guy said, well, we're going to remodel this place. So when we reopen, we want you to come back. So this place is just laid out to the nines. It's really, really nice. And they had an amateur night. And that amateur night, I go up. I didn't get booed, but I was just determined. I didn't get booed. And I think when I went up, the owner approached me and said, would you like to host, the Monday night gong? They had this gong show. And I said, well, you guys got it. I said, you have an MC. He said, Don't worry about him. That was, for me, that was a turning point. That turned it around. And then there were several after that, but that was the defining moment in terms of me being a comedian and going on to the next step.
What did you learn from that? The ability to this must be when you became a little like your dad, right? Being able to talk to anybody about anything, because you got to introduce people. You got to
talking to people on stage is not like talking to people, one-on-one. Because talking to people on stage, you're totally in control. You know what you're going to say. Having a conversation takes a lot of focusing on what the other person is saying. When you're doing stand-up, I'm not really concerned about what you're saying. In fact, it's better if you're not saying anything.
Okay. So the big difference between making conversation and crowd work.
Yeah, it's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. You don't have to be a people person to be a comedian. I know a lot of comedians that aren't people persons. You approach them after the show and you're like, well, what's wrong with him? I don't want to be bothered.
I've run into a few of those guys. Yeah, I get that.
One of the reasons is because you, as a comedian, you're constantly giving of your emotions and your spirit and whatever it takes to make that person laugh. And you can become physically drained that by the time you get off the stage, you have to do that again. And if a person catches you and you don't feel like being that quote unquote jolly guy, they think that something's wrong with you. It's like a doctor. You don't want a doctor all the time. It's like what you do. You don't want to do this radio show 24/7. Well, sometimes people don't feel like, and I hate to use this as a cliche, that comics are human, that they go about their day, and sometimes I don't feel like being funny. It's something I have this ability to turn on and off, not when you think I should turn it on and off. I have control of it. And it doesn't mean I'm a bad guy. It just means you caught me in a time where I don't want to fucking be bothered.
Yes. All right, that's fair. That's fair. But I got to dispute one thing you said. I do want to do this 24 hours a day. When my wife gets home from work and she comes in the door, I say, honey, come over and have a seat here at the table, and let me ask you some questions about your day.
Well, that's not what I'm talking about, but there are times when you, quote unquote, go into the restroom, you're not going to be on the radio. You're not doing the restroom.
All right.
And some comics, wherever they approach you, you're supposed to be in the frame of mind that they last saw you in. I just saw you on TV. You're very funny. For instance, I'm trying to get my lost luggage, and the person behind the counter is asking me why I'm not smiling.
Yeah. No, I understand. I of course was just kind of kidding, but yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Well, let's come back. So the owner in Atlanta, in that club in Atlanta, obviously had a big influence. What were some other milestone moments that kind of set you on your path?
Was definitely an influence. Working with Steve Harvey, definitely career changer. Getting a job on the Tom Joyner Morning Show was a career changer. Working with Arsenio Hall, I worked with Arsenio Hall, and even doing the radio show that I did in Los Angeles for 5 years for free. I didn't even charge the guy because I wanted to go in there and do it. I said, just let me be on the radio. That helped me, by the time I got the Tom Joyner job, I was a seasoned radio personality. So, everything is in everything helps you to the next level. You don't think it about time, but, as you go back and think about it, I did real bad here. Well, it might be good that I didn't get paid because I was learning how to do this. So by the time I was ready to get paid, I was ready. And that can be like anything. And I always tell people who will listen, if it's something you really want to do, you got to pick something that you have a passion for. What is it that you would do for free? What is it that you would do for free? And with this ability to learn, once you become good at doing it for free, trust me, somebody will pay you to do it.
And how did the Joyner show come about? And was it did it start off the way it is now, or was it a lesser role at the beginning?
So I was for Arsenio, which meant we had to be at work at 10 o'clock. From 10 to when we would finish the monologue. I was a writer. But before 10 o'clock, I would go and do the Rico Reed show in the morning. His show was on from 6 to 10. I would leave about 9:30 going to do Arsenio. So anyway, on the weekend, I had a gig at a place called gig in Los Angeles. And from that gig, Tom Joyner's producer was down there. He had a producer, and she suggested that I go on the show. And from going on the show, that's how I got on. I got on just as a guest, and we just kind of hit it off.
I'm just leaving the building.
And, hey, baby, let me call you back. I'm doing an interview.
Huh?
Doing an interview. I'm doing an interview.
What?
I'm doing an interview.
I can't hear you.
I'm doing an interview.
Oh, you gotta be.
I'm doing an interview. All right.
Oh.
All right. Bye-bye. All right.
We'll have to thank her later for providing material for the show.
But anyway, she suggested, she was a producer of the show. Her name is Yolanda Starks. She suggested that I come on as a guest after I'd done Def Jam. What they were doing in the beginning was the people who had gone on Def Jam and did real good, they were putting them on the show as guests. And that's how I ended up on the show as a guest. And I suggested that I would do these song parodies. And that's how I got on the show. Now, Tom likes to say, I showed up one day and I never left. So.
Well, that may make for a better story for him.
Stories,
All right, so let me ask you this in a more general way. What is always funny? What never fails to make you laugh and.
Well, for me, tragedy is very funny. Tragedy is very funny. Other people's misgivings or misfortunes. I have this thing that I say on stage. Everything is funny. Not right away, but after a while. That's where the phrase came from, too soon. Right. You'll go to a funeral and people will start making jokes about the dead person because they have memories of this person when they're alive. So that's funny. That changes. It's a weird dynamics because being a comedian, there are things that I don't think are funny, but if a person is doing that, they have the right to do that.
All right.
Oh, this is my book, my new book, by the way, that's coming out April Fool's Day. It's called 49 Shades of Brown.
It's upside down.
Is it really?
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah, 49 Shades of Brown. So if you like 50 Shades of Gray, you'll love 49 Shades of Brown. So that's my book.
What's in the book?
April Fool's Day.
Oh.
April Fool's Day.
No book?
Do I have it?
Is it a real book?
Yeah, it's a book. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you said April Fool's, and I thought. No.
It's coming out April Fool's.
Oh, and look, I see the picture now. It's a toilet bowl.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write a book?
It's just basically, I got all these comedy sayings and stuff, and that's where it came about.
And so it's is it a collection of your material? Is it your life?
It's about Brown.
All right.
As much as 49 Shades of 50 Shades of Gray is about Gray, this is about Brown.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, look, I want to take a second and explain to people who are watching, who are wondering how we
How
went.
many people are watching?
At least 3.
No, seriously, if you had to guess.
I don't know. Usually the show's seen by a couple thousand people at least.
Get out of here.
No.
Well, let's see if they're following. They can follow me on J. Anthony Brown, janthonybrown.com.
Okay, I'm going to give that out. Believe me, and we'll give out the hot sauce too.
Yes,
the URL for the hot sauce too. But so I want to explain to folks, because this isn't live, but I want to explain that when we started, we were having some technical problems, and I appreciate folks staying with us this long, because we got the lighting figured out and we got the sound figured out.
We got it just right now.
Now it's good. There you go. Are you leaning on a teddy bear, sir?
No, this is a...
Oh, okay. It keeps popping up, and I was thinking it was like a Teddy Ruxpin doll or something. Yeah. All right, so let's come back to the actual interview.
All right.
So you love to cuss, and you do it well. Now, I've always told my daughter since she was a very little girl that I don't care what kind of language she uses as long as she uses it well and uses it with respect. And I'm just kind of curious, how you feel about it, because obviously you're very comfortable with it.
Well, I don't curse on the radio, so I've been on the radio close to 20 years, and I've learned what you cannot say by being on the radio. If the gig calls for me not to curse, then I won't curse. But if I'm in the nightclub and I'm doing my act, there will be cursing.
And now you haven't.
So it's all done to where you're comfortable in doing it. I come from a long line of cussers. My mother was a great cusser, but I had an aunt who was actually very good at cursing because she cursed my grandmother, and that's a boundary that nobody would go in. So to curse my grandmother, you mean that you're like, that's a real good curser. Somebody that cussed out grandmama because nobody talked to grandmama like that. And she's like, you ain't blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, that's a good cusser, man.
I got to tell you something. When when my daughter was little, she was like 3 years old, and I'm driving her, had to go up on the interstate to take her to preschool. Just a quick trip up on the interstate, and we're behind this pickup truck, and suddenly, like, construction material starts coming off the back of the pickup truck at the car. And I just was I've got my pride and joy sitting next to me, and I'm like, oh shit. So I don't know, I'm like, can I dodge it? I don't know what to do. So my daughter just hears this. My daughter, who, she says, shit. And I went, no. She said, shit. And she kept saying it all the way to preschool. So I had to go into the preschool director, and I said, listen, I'm really sorry. I don't know what's going to happen, but this just happened, and all she's saying this morning is shit. So anyway,
it's a part of life. Red Fox used to do a joke about, you talk about these people who don't curse, but see what happens when you slam your hand in a car door. Do you say, oh, heck? Oh, darn it.
So it's situational, right? Because on the radio, people don't expect to hear cussing, so you don't cuss.
Don't cuss.
You're in the supermarket, most of the time you're not going to cuss. But you're in the nightclub, people come expecting to laugh and hear.
No,
right?
you might be in a supermarket, especially if it's one of those big stores. You might say to yourself, I can't find a fucking thing. You might say that.
All right. I've heard some comedians talk about how they'll get hired by some corporate gig, and they figure they're being hired because they like the material and they're blue, and they go in and they start doing their thing, and it's like dead silence, and it's like.
Well, here's the thing that I found out about comedy. People tend to be judgmental about what they'll laugh at if they know each other. Say you're talking about cheating on your wife. Well, if you're in a circle and everybody in the corporate world and maybe there's one wife cheater in the group, or say you're doing a show and they're all religious people. Well, it's kind of hard to make those people laugh because sometimes people judge you by what you laugh at. So you don't want to be the person that seem to connect with the comedian who's doing a sick joke, because your laughter makes people judge you. Now you take those same people, break them all up, and put them in a club, the comedian does fine. But somehow when they're all together and they tend to all know each other, they start to be like, I have a comedy club in Los Angeles. It's called the J Spot. The worst night I can have is Christian night, because Christians won't drink in front of other Christians.
Yeah.
But you send Christians on a convention, and not only will they drink, but they watch all the fucking porn that anybody...
Oh, God.
But it has to do with, you don't want people to judge you by what you laugh at. You know, it's like that old saying, well, I'm not laughing at that. That's because that's sick. But then you find yourself laughing. There's a buddy of mine, Buddy Lewis. He does this joke about plane crashes. It's a sick joke, but it's funny. He says, do you know whenever a plane crashes, there's one guy that says, I got to get on this fucking plane. Sir, there's no way you can get on the plane. You don't understand. I got a big meeting on such and such. I got to get on this fucking plane. He gets on the plane, and what happened? It crashes. Now, right now, that's not funny, but it's because this asshole said, I got to get on this fucking plane.
Right. So what, I asked you before, a little earlier, I was asking you what's always funny to you. What's never funny to you? What will you not laugh at? It offends even you.
That's just it. There's nothing on the face of the earth. It has to do with who's doing the joke, the environment, the time you did it. What's not funny to me is funny to somebody else. We've all gone to comedy shows, and you see the comedian, and he's doing good, and you'll say to yourself, this guy fucking sucks. And the audience is laughing because they made a connection. So what's funny and what's not funny is all irrelevant. I can't sit here. I haven't been doing comedy that long where I can say, you can't do jokes about this. I'm not Jewish, but do you know that Jewish people do Jewish jokes all the time? I'm a black guy. You know, black guys who are brothers and sisters talk about each other mama, and they got the same mama. You know, do you know people that have a loved one in their family that's died, and because that person wasn't shit, when they died, the people who are still alive do jokes about them. So who's to say what's not funny? No one can answer that question.
All right. You know, you were talking before about the club in Atlanta and other clubs. Have you worked in? I mean, there's still. I hate the expression, but there's still sort of a Chitlin circuit in the South, and there's the mainstream clubs, or at least there was the circuit. A lot of musicians have come up through it. Comedians have come up through it. Is comedy more mainstream in terms of playing anywhere, or is it, or are you not able to play in?
It depends on how you go up through the ranks. If you become a comic that can play clubs and quote unquote white, you know, you can do a little better. But you also have to understand that comedy has been so diverse now because of the internet and because of television. We have this tendency to find people that we can connect to with. Blacks tend to go to shows where they're black comics. Whites tend to go to shows where they're white comics. Hispanics tend to go to shows where they're Hispanic comics. Lesbians tend to go to shows where they're doing a lot of lesbian jokes. So, you know, it's we all seem to find our niche. It's like music. You tend to listen to what you like, and that's the way comedy is. It doesn't mean that I couldn't go in a room with white people and make them laugh. I can. Back in the beginning, I had to play the white clubs in order to make a living. I no longer have to do that because my fan base is predominantly black. Mm-hmm. So if I go somewhere, they're going to come see me. Now, what happens once I become big, like a Kevin Hart, white people have this tendency to go, well, what's that guy? Who is that guy? And they'll go see.
Right. They're
not going to come to the club on the Negro night, quote unquote. They don't have to. And it's the same thing with white comics. We've found that we don't have to perform in front of quote unquote other races. We can make a nice living just performing at black clubs. White comics never, there are white comics that have never been in front of a black audience. They don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
For black comics, I tend to tell them to find some place once a month or once a week you can go in front of a white audience, because it makes your mindset different, and it gives you the ability to make everybody laugh. And there's differences because we live different lives, but black comics, we need to be in front of white audiences. Mm. We need to be in a diverse audience. For me, it makes us a better comedian.
Personally, I like to see all kinds of comedians. I just think
I do too.
You get such a different flavor of life and what people respond to. But I certainly understand what you're saying. And, you've carved out this career, and I wanted to ask you about this. You've carved out this career where you make a living, I assume, from work in the morning show. You can make a living doing stand-up when you're able to. You've got the sauces. You've broadened yourself, but that's something that a guy in his 20s is not ready to do yet.
I think you should be ready to do it. I think, one of the things I've done at my club is I've changed the attitude toward comics working. I give them a night. They sell the tickets. They keep the door. They book the show. The word in show business is show is a small word and business is a bigger word. So if you can learn to sell yourself and brand yourself, start a podcast, sell T-shirts, sell books, branch out. That's what I've always done. And I think once comics learn to do that, it's a business. It's like anything else. I'm sure on your radio show, you learn to not just do this, but sell time and sell advertising. It increases your revenue. And that's basically what, to me, comedy is about.
So tell me, when you were a young guy in the business, whose career did you want to emulate?
Oh, man, Jonathan Winters.
Really?
Jonathan Winters. I thought Robin Williams was a little bit too much Jonathan Winters, but I was a big fan of Jonathan Winters. Before Bill Cosby, Red Fox, and Richard Pryor, but I would watch Jonathan Winters on television, and the thing that I liked about him was he wasn't all over the place. He did this thing called the junk table, where he would just pick up an item and he'd make a joke out of it, and it was all improv. And I didn't know at the time, but just what he did, and the way he did things on stage. And Johnny Carson stole a lot of stuff from Jonathan. He literally stole stuff from Jonathan Winters, But Tom has this saying, it's never who does it first, it's who makes it famous. And that's the truth.
Well, I want to steal a very old and cliche interviewer's trick, and I want to ask you about a series of people, and then have you just give me a couple short answers. Is that all right?
Yes.
All right, let me throw these out to you. Just whatever comes to your mind. We'll start with an easy one. Kevin Hart.
An amazing, hard-working comedian. He's been in it. It's not even a 20-year. In terms of fame, it's not been a 20-year span for him. It's amazing what he's done, but he put the work in. One of the things that Kevin Hart did, he invested in Kevin Hart. He invested his own money and shot that special. He invested his own, and the special turned his life around. So a lot of comics don't do that. Great comic.
All right. What about the antithesis of Kevin Hart, a guy like Eddie Griffith?
Another guy that just, it just goes to show you that back in the day, you had to be on television. You had to get the nod from Johnny Carson, and you can, you can get one song, and you can have a life-spanning career. And that's what some of these guys have done.
All right. Now I'm going to throw you a curveball. Lisa Lampanelli.
Lisa Lampanelli is very funny. And Lisa Lampanelli, she's managed to do something that I would love to do. I'd love to be able to sit on and do the Howard Stern show. I'm one of the few black comics that listens to the show that haven't been on it. Lisa Lampanelli has found her niche, and that's what this is about: finding your niche, finding what works for you. What's your audience? Well, our audience are white people over 40 who make a lot of money, gays, lesbians, and a sprinkle of blacks, and that's your audience. And when you can get 3,000 to 4,000 people to come see you do anything, that's success.
All right. The blue comedy comedians, Engvall and White and
blue collar.
Yeah,
the blue collar.
Yeah, Larry the Cable Guy and Jeff.
It's about finding their niche. I mean, when I started comedy, Jeff Foxworthy worked at the Punchline. He was one of the comics that come out at the Punchline. You might be a redneck, changed his whole career. He had early on a mindset that I'm not going to curse. I'm going to do family-oriented material. It works for him. I don't mind what you do. I just think it's hypocritical when you talk about other people and say, well, what they're doing is bad. Like, there are a lot of comics who say they don't curse. They don't curse. They curse off stage, but they don't curse off stage. They don't curse on stage. So don't fucking tell me not to curse on stage, because you curse off stage.
All right, I'm going to ask you about Bill Cosby in a minute, because you're. But how about let me throw you one more before we get to Cosby. Hannibal Buress, who actually made a lot of news because of Bill Cosby.
That was amazing. That was just totally amazing. And here's the thing: I don't think it's done for him, as opposed to I don't know. I haven't seen the guy, but it made him a household name. He was the first person to really do a stretch about Bill Cosby, where the news people picked it up and definitely had to change his life. Bill Cosby is one of those people I talk about. Bill Cosby was a big hypocrite. The rape allegations, you do air quotes, those are totally different from the way he talked to other comics. He thought he was above everybody and it wasn't cool to curse. But not only was he cursing off stage, he was trying to fuck everything that didn't move. So for me, the best thing Bill Cosby could have done was just shut up. Just do you,
Don't be a hypocrite.
Don't be a hypocrite.
I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what you're saying.
That's basically what it is.
It's astonishing how one person's reputation could fall so far so fast as Cosby's has.
But the thing is, you know what? We're such a forgiving people. We are definitely a forgiving people, man. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you do on this earth. There are a group of people who will follow you, and a group of people who will buy tickets to see you. Charles Manson got a wife. Charles Manson still gets mail. Charles Manson has followers. So with that being said, there are still people out there that will pay money to go see Bill Cosby. You only need 500 people in an audience that have a good show. Hell, you could do it with 100. And I don't care what he's done. There's 100 people that would pay to see him.
Are you surprised he's still going out and doing shows?
No.
Really? I am.
No, because it's good for the soul. It's what he does to make people laugh, gives him a certain fulfillment that when people say you need to go somewhere and sit down and shut up, well, I'd probably go crazy if I sat down and I shut up. This is what I've been doing for my entire life. So what if 30 or 40 women said I raped him? I have to deal with that, but I still know that I can get 1,000 people to pay tickets to come see me. Who wouldn't go do that?
I guess I'd be humiliated myself. Of course, I wouldn't have done what he did. You wouldn't
put yourself in that situation.
No,
right?
No, of course not. I mean, most people wouldn't. But I guess you develop such an ego, you think you're impervious to.
I don't think you think you're. I think you think. I can't get into his head about that. I can't get into Bill Cosby. Here's a guy that's a gazillionaire. Quite naturally, if he wanted to have affairs, he could pay women to have sex with him.
That's what Artie Lang did.
Get women to have sex. It's what Artie Lang did.
Right.
You know, but he decided maybe the joke is, and then once you hear all this, it becomes a joke. Maybe Bill Cosby is a guy who doesn't like a lot of talking when he's having sex. So...
Oh, no. I can't believe you just went there. Oh, my God. Oh,
see,
my God.
That's funny.
It is funny.
And as sick as that is, that's fucking funny. You know, and I don't know his mindset. He's saying, well, if I have sex with this lady, I got to talk. She's going to want to do this. Let me just knock her sick. Let me just knock her the fuck out, have sex, and go about my business.
Oh, my God. I'm glad people can't.
Now, here's the thing.
Okay.
Which is sicker, me saying it or you laughing at it?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm glad people can't see me because I'm a white guy who's turning 3 shades of red right now. Not because it's not funny. It's because I'm embarrassed at how hard I'm laughing at it. You're right.
Because it's true.
It's true, I know.
That's what life is. Everything is funny, not right away, but after a while. I do a joke when I do stand-up. Have you ever seen your grandmother thaw in the store? Now, that wasn't funny right away, but later on, it becomes the remember that time. And see, once something becomes a remember that time, at the time it happens, it's not funny. But once you're sitting around talking, you remember that time you were in the backyard, you were trying to light the barbecue, and it blew up in your fucking face and blew your beard off. That wasn't funny right away. But once we come back to the house, 2 or 3 Thanksgivings go by, you become the remember that time. Now it's funny. And that's what comedy is.
I as you were saying that, I thought of there's a line, this is an old Steve Martin line, and he would sing, and I'm sorry I can't sing, but he would sing, Grandpa bought a rubber. That was it. That was the whole line, and I never forget that, you know. I got a picture of my grandfather over here to the right of me, and every time I look at that, I think of Steve Martin singing, Grandpa bought a rubber. All right, let's change gears here for a minute. Can you tell us something about Tom Joyner that you've never told anybody before?
Oh, man. The guy is a workaholic. A workaholic. He never, ever gets tired. He's so and I can see why he's a big success. I mean, I've been working with Tom Joyner for close to like 20 years. I forget. I don't know. You have any real rich friends? Really, really rich?
A couple of them. Well, yeah.
Do you ever forget how rich they are? You like?
No.
I mean, you know them, and you go, well, damn.
Yeah.
Something happens, and they're able to replace it right away. Because they're rich.
Right.
So, but he's rich in spirit, and he's rich because he really believes in what he's doing. You know, I want to be on the Howard Stern show, and I talk all the time about how parallel they are to each other. They both started a medium, one white, one black, both college graduates, both want to be comedians, both been married twice, both love comedians, both have anchor people that sound like, quote unquote, they're white. Both are excellent interviewers. Both changed the game of radio. Tom did when he started doing his syndication show, and so did Stern. So for me, and you don't get there overnight by just saying, this is how you do it. You put the work in. So the dude did for 8 years, he flew from Dallas to Chicago and did 2 radio shows. So by the time he got a syndication deal, shit, he was ready. That's work. That's hard work. That's hard work.
All right.
And that's what I like about the guy.
All right. Tougher question. Tell your fans something about you that they would not know.
Oh, man. God, what would they would not know? I really, I guess people don't understand how much I really like being on the radio. I guess they hear it, but they don't know how much I really like it. The hardest part of this job is waking up in the morning. I do this show sometimes from Los Angeles this morning. I leave my house at 2:30. I arrive at work around 2:45 or 2:50 or whatever. And once that mic goes on and we're talking to people and we're laughing, it's the best 4 hours of my day. It's the absolute best 4. When my mother died, it was as sad as I absolutely could be. When my father died, I couldn't wait to get back on the radio. And that's the parallel that I make with Bill Cosby. It's got to be hell out there. He turns on the news. Okay, maybe he didn't. Let's say he didn't rate 20. Even if it's 10, even if it's 5, even if it's 1, it's something that he's got to deal with. When he goes on that stage, he ain't got to deal with it. So it's an escape for him, and that's what the radio does for me. Turn that radio on, play that music, we get talking about the news. Man, it's 4 hours ever. The best, absolutely the best 4 hours ever.
All right. Well, folks, listen, you can catch comedian J. Anthony Brown on the Tom Joyner morning shows most days, and you can order his Hotter Than a Mofo, hot sauces, gourmet snacks, and merchandise, including some pretty hot-looking shirts, at hotterthanamofo.com. You want to hold up the book again, Jay?
Yes, and be sure to check out my book. The book's going to be released on April Fool's Day. It's 49 Shades of Brown, and it's about, if you like 49 Shades of Grey, 50 Shades of Grey, you're going to love 49 Shades of Brown.
All right, and if you want to order the book, we'll have it available right on the MrMedia.com site. Somewhere below, if you're watching there, below the video, you should see you'll see the cover of the book. You can click on it right now. We'll get it out to you. Amazon has drones now. They'll get it to you in 30 minutes or less.
Right there.
All right.
If you're in LA, please stop by the J Spot.
Yeah, I'll do the plugs here. Thank you, Jay.
All right.
My goodness.
Okay.
All right, and are you on Twitter, Facebook, any of that kind of stuff?
Twitter and Facebook, J Spot Comedy Club.
What about a YouTube channel?
J Spot Comedy. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Yep.
All right. If I'm going to give the plugs, you got to play along and know what they are.
Oh, yeah, you got. Okay.
All right. Well, listen, J. Anthony Brown, been wonderful talking to you. I had a great time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Media, today.
All right. Thank you.
Receiver, turn your back on the deceiver. It's a bad idea to believe her. A bad idea to believe her. Turn up the stereo receiver. Turn up the stereo receiver.
Hi, this is Buzz Burbank in the Buzz Burbank Newsroom, preparing for you another Buzz Burbank news and comment. Do you like good stories? Boy, I sure do. I turn over a lot of stones each day to make sure I don't miss the best ones. Sure, some make me angry, and some make me sad, and some make me laugh, and isn't that what makes us human? I'm proud of the fact that I pack more news into my 10 or 15 minutes a day than the evening news does in a half hour. It's a free podcast at buzzburbank.com, or you can subscribe free at iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or get it on any RSS device. It's like a newspaper for your head. It's Buzz Burbank News and Comment, another Realm Network presentation. Weekday mornings right here on the Realm Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the George and Tony Entertainment Show. Prepare for awesome mediocrity.
We're the Cousin Oliver of the Realm Network. I'm George.
And I'm Tony.
And we're a weekly family-friendly podcast about pop culture.
From our point of view.
At realmnetwork.com, the George and Tony Entertainment Show from the Realm Network.
This is Snake. Do you read me, Otacon?
Loud and clear, Snake.
Did you listen to the latest episode of the Gaming Marathon on the Realm Network?
Of course. They really know their stuff about gaming, especially that Usad guy.
Yeah, but that Chirac guy's a real jerk. I don't like him.
Regardless, their reviews are spot on and they tell it like it is.
That's for sure.
What happened, Snake? Were you spotted?
Nah, it's just Lil Melser crying about the O's again.
Close call.
I better continue the search for Metal Gear, but keep listening to the Gaming Marathon each week.
You got it, Snake.
New every Monday afternoon right here on the Realm Network.
It's the Mark and Lowell Show.
Hi, this is Mark. And this is Lowell. And if you're fans of Don and Mike, you may know who we are.
Our number one interns. You've met them on the show. They're the guys that ate all the junk, and they were outside with each other holding hands with a sign that said that they loved each other wearing the dunce caps.
And what you may not know is that we started out as fans back in their WAVA days.
Hi, Don and Mike. It's Mark and Lowell.
Oh, yeah. Hey, these are two guys that we once actually called them our proteges, didn't we?
And now we have our own show, so we want you to give it a shot. Just check us out at the Realm Network, realmnetwork.com, or you can go to markandlowell.com.
Resistance is futile. It's the Mark and Lowell Show.
Every Tuesday and Thursday evenings right here on the Realm Network. And catch the Poor Premium Show Friday nights.